dig down into the partnerships use case. And to do that, we've got Ben Adams, the Vice President of Visa. Ben has been with Visa over 7 years and is the Vice President, Head of Commercial and Money Management Solutions at Visa. Ben, come on up. You're the next contestant on Intersekt Conversations. Ben has more than 25 years' experience in financial services across the UK and Australia. Prior to Visa, he spent 2 years at Telstra as General Manager, Solution Design and Delivery, leading a large customer experience transformation program, as well as 16 years at GE Capital. He's done it all. Great to have you here. Thank you so much, mate. And a company I know and love well, Jaco Veldsman is the Global Head of Non-FX Revenue at OFX and the co-founder of Paytron, a pioneering cloud-based payment solution designed for businesses and accountants. His career spans more than 2 decades in global banking, algorithmic trading and finance. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for these two for our penultimate conversation of the day. Over to you.
Looks like a tough shift at the end of the day. Thank you for those who have joined us. So yeah, we are going to talk about partnerships, and where we're going to focus is on mainly on small businesses. So many of you will be feeling this, hopefully, this global shift to focus on serving small businesses. And what we're going to do today is talk to OFX about how they've been doing that. So where I thought I'd start, Jaco, is with your background and your very interesting title of Global Head of Non-FX Revenue, which sounds like the kind of title that OFX would do. But do you want to talk about your role, OFX, and just help people set the scene for that?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think as you said, Ben, we've got a great shift here. No, look, the one thing of what we've been trying to do when we joined OFX is the interesting part is OFX, for those of you that have known them, most people actually know the company from years away, has been on a journey to do FX for the last, it's one of Australia's first fintechs, and they've been on the journey for many, many years. When we joined, it was time to really change the company anew. So it's a very, very exciting time, very, very interesting time for us as a business.
And maybe tell us a bit about how you've come to be part of OFX. So Jaco is a founder of a very exciting business that was acquired just over a year ago by OFX. So maybe you can take us through a bit of the journey of how you came about founding the organization. What were you doing before that? Like, what's your background, and how did you form effectively a business payment spend management business?
Well, my historical background is more in statistics. So I went to study statistics at uni, spent a few years in banking, Australia, London, South Africa. And then when the payments ecosystem really evolved, I was actually in the UK, started to note all the fintechs that started to pop up. And found it extremely interesting to see how the ecosystem is changing. And I remember back then being issued my first card for Revolut back then. It was 2016. And I got paid, and I was looking at it and going, where's this money come from? And it said, currency cloud. And I was like, what's a currency cloud? And of course, you guys know the history. We'll get there in a second. But then I met my co-founder, Francois Henry, he's somewhere here in the audience today. We met each other in March 2020 by opportune circumstances. We were having a coffee by a mutual friend introduction, and decided to start a business right there. Started talking about all our hedge fund days and banking days, and it got really interesting. So a few years after that, OFX saw an opportunity to actually acquire us, and it was great timing for us. And yeah, it was an opportunity that we thought it's too good to be true to actually leave it. So we joined OFX.
Thanks, Jaco. As a founder on a rapid journey, I think it'd be really interesting for everyone to hear some of your more interesting stories from that journey. I know you were raising capital in a number of different locations, You had some really interesting investors, which you probably can't talk about, but maybe there's some stories around that, the highs and the lows. Share some of that experience with us, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think one message I can say is that if you have a certain view of something, until you've done it, you never really know what it's like. And I can say the one thing I was wrong about was being a founder. Like, there's so many assumptions, it's just, it couldn't be further from the truth. There's a lot of things that it's been presented in a different way. But I think one really interesting thing that happened to us was, at the time, when we got introduced to some really, really cool people in the USA, some really cool investors over there. And anybody that's been part of the ecosystem on that side is, once you're into the ecosystem, things happen really, really quickly, and people are very much more sharing on that side. I think the one thing that I've learned from seeing how the US does business in terms of investments is that it's less of a competition. It's more about, I can't do this now, but I'll definitely know somebody that will be very interested, and the ecosystem really jumps really quickly. I found that fascinating. But one of the really weirdest things that happened to us was when we were going through these raises, you get various people interested in you in various times, and it goes quiet, and then it gets busy, and it gets quiet and gets busy, depending if you're raising or not. And I do recall a specific time when it got so quiet that we were like, are we going to raise or not? And then we had 4 interested parties looking at us at the same time. And then you go from nothing to all of a sudden trying to figure out what on earth are you going to do, which way you're going to go, which of these investors are you going to go with? Is it the right one or not? And I think that's the most bizarre part of the founding journey, of the startup journey, is that it's never just stable. It just goes extremes all the time.
Thank you, Yaku. So let's pivot a bit from there. So you've been partnering with Visa or Currency Cloud since 2020. Maybe just a bit of context for everyone. Currency Cloud is something that Visa acquired back in 2019. It's a foreign exchange capability and the ability to create multi-currency virtual accounts in real time. And so, at the time, that was helping businesses like Revolut and Wise, and so I guess that's why you experienced it. So you started partnering with us with that part of the business. Maybe you can talk a bit more about how you envisage, or how we're partnering more now, and how you see that evolving over the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, our journey, especially at Patron now, which has become OFX, has been very much working with Visa, and by default, it's acquired parties and all its entities for quite a long time. I mean, since our inception, and OFX, when OFX acquired us, we obviously try to look at every single vendor that we've got a relationship with. We've got fantastic relationships with a number of vendors out there, and what was interesting is that when we looked at Currency Cloud, and if you keep in mind, OFX has got numerous banking relationships as well. It's been in existence for a long time, so by now it's got a very strong relationship. One thing that was quite interesting is that the Currency Cloud Visa relationship, they stood the test of time, and we saw an opportunity to expand that into the cards area. And what's quite exciting is to see the numerous parts of Visa now that allows us to actually go on, and it's almost like a menu. You can go on and kind of go and find these multiple problems that you want to solve. And what we found, what was really interesting about Visa now, is that it's no longer just this one offering company. There's multiple areas you can get into it. And so for us, as a business, it's really much solving for us the infrastructure problem. I think if you look at a couple of competitors and a couple of people in the market, everybody's taking a different view of things. And where people are looking at it is they either going full hog infrastructure, or they're trying to play as the end consumer and the end customer, whether it's business or not. They are taking the view that, as opposed to trying to build everything, you can either partner or you can try and do everything. You look at Wise, they're probably taking a much more approach of infrastructure. On our side, what we found is we want to focus on the experience of the customer. We are not so much focused on trying to rebuild infrastructure layers. We'd rather partner, and we found Visa very much fulfilling multiple aspects of partnerships, just simplifying our infrastructure play.
Great, that's what we aim to do. And then, so what about OFX? So just over a year ago now, you were acquired by OFX. Help us understand why that is the right business to take Paytron forwards into the next phase of its life.
Yeah, I think, look, it's very, one should always be very careful when you talk about the future. I'm extremely careful, but every so often you should try and look further and just try and see, what's happening. I think we've never lived in a more uncertain time, but also we've never lived in a more exciting time. I think the future has become infinitely unpredictable. What you should do is kind of figure out, are you on the right track, right? And so when we joined OFX, what we looked at Paytron is, from the Paytron side, what we always wanted to do is to focus on the workflow and the software, and to make sure that the end experience of the customer is fantastic. Start with the customer and work your way backwards, as opposed to trying to find technology and just running around with like a hammer and smashing nails. And so what was quite interesting, if you look at OFX side, OFX had an enormous distribution and phenomenal reach across multiple countries. We're one of the largest owners of businesses, in North America, and there's phenomenal opportunity to bring our software we had at Paytron onto OFX customers. And so we're working very, very hard right now to kind of bring this experience that we had at Paytron onto the customer side. People won't recognize OFX a year from now, 2 years from now. Like, people, you always judge something based on what you're seeing from the outside. But I can tell you something from the inside is it's going to be something that's going to be fundamentally different. And we'll look back and hopefully, I wouldn't dare being arrogant and saying it's an Apple moment, where, all of a sudden there's a new surge. But really good companies have the ability to reinvent themselves every few years. You look at Microsoft, who I used to, really dislike a few years ago. Now I have enormous respect again for them. And they've started to win back, some, it's really cool what they're doing at the moment. And so I think for what we want to achieve as a company, we want to reinvent ourselves completely. And so I think what we saw the opportunity with OFX and Paytron is we could take modern new technology and bring it to a very wide audience, and really serve our customers on an enormous scale. And so for us, that is not an opportunity that you get every day, to find that distribution channel as we did.
So you're mainly serving small business customers, but obviously medium, large as well, and consumers. If we think about small business, the heartland of Australia, what are the needs you're solving for those businesses? So what is it how do you help them run their businesses today? And when you think about needs you want to solve in the future, what ones rise to the top of your mind?
So we get asked this question every day, right? Like if we're doing a sales pitch or you're talking to new customers, they go, yeah, but I've already got a card, or I already do this, I already do that. And what I often say to people is like, why do we exist? And what's going to change? What's happening to OFX? Why are we doing this? Is that I'll use the analogy of Apple again because it's so easy and because it's a successful story, so you can point to it. But if you look at the iPhone, right, which was an enormous change, people look at the iPhone and go, oh, it's a great phone. But when the iPhone came out, it had a camera, it had email, it had text messages, you could call, you could maybe watch a video. I can't remember 2007, but I think it could do video. And it was a great phone, but it didn't do anything different. And why did they succeed? And I think one of the reasons why they succeeded is that they managed to embed the software on top of the hardware. And that to me was a fundamental shift when the lights went on, is that if you look at anything really good, is that if you can control the entire ecosystem experience for your end customer, you're really in a position of strength. Now, Apple doesn't make their own devices. They design them, but they're manufactured by another partner. and a partner that is an expert in making sure that data scalability works. And so from our side, the way we view our relationship, inside with Visa in particular, is that we see Visa as our manufacturer. And our partners like that. And, we've got our friends here in the audience. I won't point them out, but you've got, App Store connectors, ecosystem partners, accounting partners. Yes, Xero. Thank you, Xero. But, we actually view them as such a strategic partners in this aspect that we want to control the software on top of it. And so the experience that we want to bring to the end customer is about making sure we can control that. Sorry, Ben, I went a little bit off piece there.
No, that's good. And so as you think about what the scene you've just set there, to help bring it to life for everyone else, who are kind of the role models you see existing, whether it's in this country and or other countries, that you kind of think are getting it right and you aspire to be, maybe not mimic, but learn from and get some inspiration from?
Yeah, there's multiple. I think, look, I just realized I didn't answer your previous question in full, is what's so different to our experience is that we want to give the customer complete control over their transactions, right? Whether it's a card transaction or moving money or making a payment. What the customers tell us when they've joined the platform is that it's significantly different and they can't really contextualize it, apart from the fact that they can now fully control it. So if you think of a card transaction, if the card transaction happens here at an independent provider, and you have your software to upload the receipt and things on this side, and whether you have a bill that you've uploaded here, whatever software you're using, let's call it pre-accounting software, and you have your transaction in the middle, and you have the after-the-fact transaction here, the reconciliation and the accounting work that needs to happen. These things are all disparate workflows. And so our focus is to connect these ecosystems all in one place. And so that the pre-accounting, the actual transaction, and all the post-accounting work is on the same ecosystem, the same system. And so that's why SMBs and people really like us. And so when I go back to your next question, is obviously people that have forged the way. We were trying to, Francois and I were trying to solve the problem to customers, their feedback, and when you're trying to solve a problem, you're always trying to look at who's ahead of you or who's doing it differently to kind of understand how can you do it better or improve on it. People like Bill.com in the US has been very, very inspirational to us. We have a few investors from there. We have a few people join us from there now who have said to us that it feels like this is the new version, this is the cross-border version, this is the new exciting version. We've got very exciting people that's joined us in the US. People like Ramp, I think, are very impressive, obviously. There's not a single person that I've spoken to that's not impressed by them. Rippling is doing incredible. And so these businesses all offer various aspects, various things that I think is interesting to follow, but yeah.
And then Patron was already originally a global company. OFX is clearly a global company. We're operating in multiple markets. How are you thinking about tackling that? So, dominant market is Australia. Is it different? Like, do you have to think about different products per market? How do you think about scaling your business to serve multiple markets? As you look at Canada's of markets like North America, Europe, UK. So some of those markets are quite different. How do you think and approach tackling that?
Yeah, you have to be respectful of each market's nuance, right? Like, I think, you look again to people that have actually gone ahead of us and really, expanded out, and they've learned hard lessons, and, I'm trying to not relearn those lessons and look at them and say, thank you for the hard lessons. You look at little things like tax and, what's important. In the US, they're not used to paying for cards, because the whole system there works different. The incentive schemes are different. In Australia, it's very different again. In Canada, it's very different, and so forth. And so you need to be very respectful of each market. That's number one. Our head of product, our global head of product, Francois Henrion, who used to be a co-founder with me at Patron, he's currently trying to figure that out with his team as well. For us on the go-to-market side and the marketing side and sales side, what we're trying to figure out is, like, how do we present the value proposition to the end customer in a way that they understand. We can get so sucked into our own worlds in the ecosystem that what's amazing is that you understand the product and the problem extremely well. And then when you talk to the end customer, they go like, what's different? They can't see the nuance. And so that's our job. That's what we're trying to figure out.
And I've noticed you've been doing a lot of advertising lately, and I guess that's a good test of how you explain it to what it is to customers. How, like, if you're explaining it to everyone in this room in a sentence or two, how do you describe your product and the value it delivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a simple way of saying it, it depends on the audience, right? If we would just say one sentence, it's a platform to transform your financial operations. And then if we get the ability to kind of talk to them a bit more, they go like, okay, so what? And it's spend management to control every aspect of your global expenses. And then if you get more time, you kind of go further into the bill payments. And then, if I were to really try and bring it home, it's one platform instead of having to log into multiple systems that allows you to automate your bill payments, to control your spend, to issue cards, and to move money around the world in a fast and efficient way. Instead of logging into multiple systems, multiple bank accounts around the world, you can have one login, multiple entities to control your entire borderless cash flow.
Well done, I put you on the spot there, but that is a good sales pitch. So then when we think about the needs of small businesses, and we've talked about a bit already, what are the biggest ones that you think haven't been solved that you think really need solving? So we're really talking about all this administration time, different systems. People running their business do not want to spend their time on that. They want to spend time on growing their business and running their business. So are there a few things that stand out for you that you think really need solving, either at an ecosystem level or data flows or things to remove reconciliation effort? Is there anything on your mind that you think is kind of the next frontier for solving?
Yeah, there's loads. I think a very big pain point currently in the market is approvals, right? How you flow your cash through a business. Who approves it? Who gets to decide what the limits are and the controls on how much money spends around? But it depends on the problem, depending on how large the business is. And so small businesses really don't have this issue, but they've got other problems. Larger businesses have approval problems, but they've got people to sort out some of the reconciliation. And what was interesting, we had a day with our investors, and we got a question from the audience at the time. So OFX is a listed entity, so we have these investor days. And what was quite interesting is that one of the investors said, so is this really just for big business, or is it for small, or how does it work? And we had one of our clients there, a fantastic company, Plasma Leap, highly recommended. Sorry, are we out of time?
No, okay. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. The company's name is Plasma Leap. I highly recommend you guys take a look. It's one of those meetings that you have where you just get sucked into such an extraordinary company. And it's a CFO, came from a large business. He's one of the people trying to run this company. And we posed him the question, and we said, listen, how do you feel about this platform? And he's like, it's the opposite. If you, a very small company, you actually have more need for support on technology because you don't have time to spend on these little things. That's why companies like Xero exist and did so well, is that they answered that need to kind of help the small business attack very, very, very painful things. Same for us, right? Our whole view is to automate some of these small problems so that the customer can actually focus on doing their business. And he said to us in front of the investors at the time, he was like, I find more need for this product the smaller the company. And then there's a midsection where people hire people, but in today's market, with massive pressure on costs, nobody's in the mood to go and hire multiple people focusing on things that just cost money, right? So the technology kicks in again, and then people start looking at automating. And you look at your own survey you guys did in North America in March, 67% of SMBs, I think, are looking at trying to find more technology to solve automation of these kind of really painful things in the financial ecosystem.
Thanks for pumping that up. You can always go on to visa.com if you want to find any of our research. So we haven't got long left, a couple of minutes. So if we fast forward and think 12, 24 months in the future, how do you think it's like, what's going to change significantly for small businesses trying to run their businesses? What do you think is going to be really different then that we're not even thinking about today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, right? Because, like, again, it's like, how far do you want to look ahead? And what I found fascinating, I'll try and not answer that, but answer it in a certain way, because, like, again, I've got multiple ideas depending on what day you ask me. But for today, I'll just give you this example, and it's a well-trodden path already. So, but I want to give you a different way to look at it. Like, everybody's talking AI, everything, and like, yeah, cool. I mean, a few years ago we were here at this very event talking about it. It's all of a sudden it's just crypto everywhere, and here we are talking about AI, and there's very little crypto talk. I'm sure it's still going to be great, but we go through these phases. But I'll give you this. My little boy the other day, I showed him something. He's 12, and I showed him an example on kind of like a coding thing that came out. And he's just started playing around on computers and stuff. And it's an AI thing that helps you code. And, when you talk about these kids in garages that are going to, working on the next disruption, he came back to me, I think it was 6 days. Now, keep in mind, like, they've obviously got ample more time and less things to worry about than all of us here. So I'll use that as my excuse. But he came back to me, and he'd written a program. I don't know if you're as old as I am, you would have played Snake on Nokia. He built a new Snake, right? He's got Snake from scratch. He deployed it on his Mac, shared it with all his mates, and all his mates were playing Snake. And then I was like, you know what? And he was like, it was 5 days, right, from nothing. And he deployed that, and then all of a sudden, the next day he came back and said, yeah, they figured out how to share it and play across the internet. So they were playing across Bluetooth and Wi-Fi because he was talking to the AI, trying to help him to kind of, how can he connect his mates, right? Now, that to me is why, at the moment, I was like, anything can happen. And yeah, it's AI and all of that, but I don't think we're truly appreciating what is happening. It's like, if a 12-year-old can do that in his spare time and start that kind of thing, I don't know exactly how to kind of grab onto what's happening next, right? So, like, it's currently, to me, it's in flux.
Well, I'm hoping we're going to see in a year's time your business flourishing, small business customers' needs being more solved so they can spend more time on what they give a shit about, which is running their business and growing their business. And with that, Jaco, I just want to thank you for joining me on stage and sharing the journey you've been on with your business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Jaco and Ben, and I admire your son for that, because I tell you, my teenage kids with AI,